give no quarter. Give no quarter. Give no quarter. Give no quarter.
Hey folks, this is a rarity. I am here without the ladies. We are here without the producer. There is nobody that you are listening to but the Ruthless Wonder, not a Ruthless Wonder. And before we pop out with the first episode of Give No Quarter, I wanted to get into this subject. We'll get the ladies' reactions during the show. You're going to talk to me about this today, though. And I want to talk about something that is bothering me personally, because apparently my Facebook is a war zone. And it's people who have a problem with third-party voting. Now, for our international listeners, I want you guys to understand America's two-party system is very much a Coke versus Pepsi situation. This is very much two things have become so ubiquitous in our society that people have no ability to look outside the box. So, while I am happy you are listening to this audio / watching this video, I also need to apologize to you all for, of course, this very America-centric show today. But let's get to it. I have spent the last few days dealing with a combination of people who feel it is their necessity to tell people who don't want to vote for Hillary Clinton that voting for third party is pointless. Now, this is not just the people who are saying Bernie or bust. Obviously, I know quite a few Bernie or bust folks. I subscribe to their groups to see their views. There we go. Little tongue trouble there. But I wanted to understand them, and I thought, okay, well, Bernie or bust kind of makes sense until they start saying they want to vote for Trump. The thing about that is, even myself, even my analysis of that was colored by something very important. You assume because someone says they're not voting for Hillary Clinton that they are voting for Donald Trump. And that's an interesting assumption. We're going to get to a little bit more of that here in just a little bit. But I wanted to open with that because it is a very odd thing to say, well, because you're not with this person, you must be with this person. What about option C? I didn't think about option C. Obviously, there's option M, which is my personal favorite. That's where Matthew becomes monarchy, where you are dealing with King Ruthless Wonder, not just the Ruthless Wonder. See how I flipped it? Yeah. Anyway, but it's a very odd thing, and it goes back to an article that we wrote way back on Words Don't Do It Justice. Gosh, it must have been in the late first year, beginning of second year, where we talked about the fact that physiologically speaking, from a scientific perspective, you are actually only able to keep track of 150 people in your brain actively. Now, what that means is you might know other people. I certainly have a lot more people that I know and from time to time have associations with. But in general, you have 150 people. And once you get outside of that 150 people, everyone else becomes an other. A sort of hang on the periphery. The reason why television shows have side characters that seem to be occasional or phasing it out is because they know you can only really keep track of a couple characters, and outside that, you're not really going to care, much less they're not going to be important to you. Who those characters are is up for grabs, so they try to make side characters interesting, but you're never just interested in a single side character. It's always multiple characters on the show, and everyone else is kind of like, whatever. So, that plays into this notion of, if you're not for Hillary Clinton, you must be for Donald Trump. The other thing that plays into it is fear of Donald Trump. Now, that's a very leftist, very Democrat fear. Here's why. In general terms, Donald Trump is scary not because Donald Trump is not going to win. In fact, I would say that without any pushing for third-party candidates, without any prodding when it comes to getting Bernie supporters to vote for Hillary, that Donald Trump still is better than 50% to win this election. And here's the reason why. People who are voting for Donald Trump are not, I repeat, are not telling you they're going to vote for Donald Trump. Look, Republicans, as they often say, fall in line. Democrats, as they say, fall in love. But here's a deeper and scarier reality. Here's something that's really going to screw with you. You're only making him gain in percentage of chance to win. The latest polls coming out of the Republican National Convention that came out during the first day of the Democratic National Convention state that Trump received a 10% bump, putting him 3% ahead of Hillary Clinton. So he went from being down to Clinton by 7 points to being above Clinton by 3. I know what you're wondering. Is that above the margin of error for that poll? Absolutely. More than double the margin of error for that poll. The reason that things like Trump become a problem is because we don't viably look at the possibilities of other parties. Why is that? Because the people who are invested in these parties don't want out. What do I mean? The Koch brothers, Sheldon Adelson, Soros, Cenk Uygur, all of these people who you commonly hear about when it comes to liberals and conservatives, Rupert Murdoch and Fox News, though they're way too busy right now dealing with the fallout from Roger Ailes. All of these figures, all of these important folks are most of the time busy pumping up the party because it gets them the biggest group of people that they support in the same place. Right now, all of Europe is laughing at you. Everyone who's watching this right now on YouTube and listening to this on SoundCloud, you are being laughed at uncontrollably so by everyone in Europe, and that includes everyone in the UK and Ireland. The reason I say that they're laughing at you is because they have more than two parties that are viable. In fact, third-party candidates become very important because they build what are called coalition governments. And that just means that no one party has enough votes to usually take control, and because of that, they have to work with a party that they don't normally work with to get some proportional help and to get them over the point. And here's the idea. You want a world where the candidate that you vote for matters. And so that means you can't stick by two very generalist parties that kind of have your interest involved. One of the things that I talked with a young man who considers himself to be what did he say? He said Hotep without the hypocrisy. Is that he believes that African Americans as a whole should open their own political party because the Democrats and the Republicans are not getting their needs accomplished. He also felt, again, this is things he expressed to me, he also felt that black conservatives aren't really served well in the Republican Party, and maybe there should be two black parties. And I thought that was an interesting take. He doesn't feel animosity towards conservative black people, which I tend to disagree with him on in some cases. There are some black conservatives that are on my shit list, but in many cases they are good folks. They think differently than I do. They of course want democracy. I want you to be ruled by my awesome iron fist. Well, he told me about that, and I thought about it as a larger thing. Why aren't people voting for third parties? Why don't third parties have a level of viability in our society? And it comes down to something very simple. You. Yes, you the people listening to this, you the people watching this, you're the reason why we don't have third parties. What do I mean? I'll tell you what I mean and you'll find it hilarious. As we always do. Bernie Sanders is, unfortunately, the death of third-party candidacy in America. Now, there may be another candidate that comes along that moves things in a way that can make stuff work, but here's the deal. Bernie Sanders came to us and said, look, I have to come into the Democratic Party because no one will take me seriously otherwise. All right, I'll do it. See, his Democratic nomination run is not the death of third parties. Him deciding that he has no other choice but to stop just caucusing with the Democrats and actually declare himself one was the problem. What do I mean? Bernie Sanders is a Democratic socialist. That means he is to the far left of Hillary Clinton and, oddly enough, to the right of Jill Stein. While I appreciate Jill Stein's attempt to get Bernie Sanders to come into the Green Party and run with her on her ticket, something I actually would probably have supported, I also understand how difficult that would be for somebody who has spent his time trying to get everyone, young and old, to vote their conscience in the Democratic Party. Bernie Sanders is, in fact, what you want in a non-traditional candidate. He is exactly what you want in a third-party candidate. But he is also the kind of person you would want to break America out of the two-party system. Why did Bernie Sanders work as a candidate? Because you had to give him television time. If Bernie Sanders didn't have to be a Democrat and could have run as a third party and still gotten the same television time, then maybe we have a chance for third-party system. Maybe we have a chance for multi-party systems. And so that brings me to, of course, why we're here today. There was a person on my wall, on my Facebook newsfeed, that said something very interesting. And she said, if you have a problem with the political things that I'm posting, and she went on a list, the need for Bernie to have been a third party, to not vote for Hillary Clinton, the scandals and all these things. If you have a problem with that, delete me. Because I'm not going to stop saying these things. And I'm not going to vote for Hillary Clinton. Now this young black woman has a family, married, kids, all that, job, house, all that good stuff. And she feels it's important for her to stand up. That's a voice you wouldn't have heard 10 years ago because Facebook was in its infancy. But it's also something that you wouldn't have heard in society 20 years ago, where a black person stood up to the major parties as somebody who is directly in the demographic of the parties. I have no personal beef with Hillary Clinton. I have a professional one. And I say that I obviously know Hillary Clinton doesn't give a shit about who I am. I'm just a guy on the internet talking. Hell, many of you, as much as I love all of you folks from the Justice League to our random lurkers, I know that you all are the only ones paying attention to us, and that there are very few other people doing so. But here's the thing. One of the issues that we have in our society is there are no multiple parties because you won't vote for them. The last time we had a viable additional party, a party that was legitimately taking votes away from the two major parties at the time, was Theodore Roosevelt. America just isn't built like that. We are very this or that. We are very, you must like Coke or you must like Pepsi. And I say that because they're both corporate shows trying to get your money. You see what I'm saying? I'm not anti-corporation. I'm anti this notion that we can be anything other than a corporatist nation in an era where capitalism rules. Look, if things were right, if things were well done, politics would look like the NFL or NBA. What do I mean? It would need large teams or small teams of very specific, not necessarily regional, but ideologically specific groups. Yes, you would have dominant groups, as there are dominant fandoms for NFL teams, and NBA teams. But in general, people would take a much less personalized focus on how these groups get together, and they would look at how their politics, their policies affect their personal lives, not just the personalities of these candidates. So how does that get to these comments on Facebook for me? Well, The comments on Facebook wouldn't have bothered me until a friend of mine and writer for the staff felt that it was necessary to counter every single time I posted something about the leaks from the DNC or regarding Hillary's emails, that he would need to post something stating that we need to defeat Donald Trump. Guys, and I don't need to name him, he knows exactly who he is. In general, I don't care. But in this specific instance, where I happen to care about what happens to the fate of the country, telling me consistently that Bernie says to vote for Hillary, that Hillary Clinton's the only one who can defeat Trump, doesn't actually prove what you really need. What you really need is to say, here's a good reason why, despite everything she has done otherwise, Hillary Clinton deserves your vote. But that's not going to happen. Because on both sides of this, Hillary supporters who want you to vote for Hillary, Trump supporters who want you to vote for Trump, they are going to use Bernie Sanders to their advantage. Well, if you were a Bernie supporter, how could you dare vote for Hillary Clinton, so vote for me because I'm Trump, and I'm not Hillary Clinton? Well, if you're going to vote for Bernie Sanders, who wanted to defeat Trump, we have him saying Hillary Clinton can beat Trump, you should vote for Hillary Clinton. But that's not what we're really dealing with here. What we're really dealing with, what we really need, is an option that isn't them. And unfortunately, Gary Johnson and Joe Stein, God bless the both of them, are just not viable enough to pull that off. They are not, in fact, the best candidates to draw people away from these parties. But bigger than that, they can't do it because you won't let them. Every person saying you should vote for Hillary because Hillary's the only one that can beat Trump is saying so because they don't consider third parties viable. And the reason that you have no alternative to a corporatist Democrat who is really a conservative Democrat like Hillary Clinton is because you don't give any credence to the idea that someone other than a Democrat could be right about leading the country. The reason you conservatives have such a problem not voting for Trump and won't vote for Gary Johnson is because you refuse to concede that anyone other than Donald Trump could actually be right and, on top of that, could defeat Hillary Clinton. You know Gary Johnson can't beat Hillary Clinton because all the Democrats are going to fall in line-ish to back her. All of you Democrats know Donald Trump can beat Joe Stein because all of the Republicans are going to fall in line behind Donald Trump. But that's not the way things should work. In fact, telling your friends, and I'm going to end on this because we are almost over time for me, but I'm going to end on this. Telling your friends that they shouldn't vote for a third-party candidate, that it's throwing away their vote, that it's worthless. All of these things, telling them that is the worst possible thing for you to do. Not because it scares up fears of Trump, not because it scares up fears of Clinton, but because, in fact, you are making a system that is broken survive. If we as an American people finally broke from this need to vote for one party or another, if we could finally break even the big donors from one party or the other, and actually got them behind these other candidates, that would make a major change. Because make no mistake, if MSNBC started running Green Party stuff the entire time, with giving little time to the Democrats during the nomination process, the Green Party would have been viable. If Fox had been blaring libertarian stuff from Gary Johnson and the people running against him, they would have been viable as well. We are not viable. We are not in a viable environment for additional parties because you refuse to give them any legitimacy. And if you want actual change, you're not going to get it from Coke or Pepsi. Sometimes you gotta buy some RC Cola. Yeah. That's what third parties are. RC Cola. You know it's good, you just don't get it often enough. And that's what you should be thinking about. You know that this is better than what you have been given, Coke and Pepsi. but you don't give it any legitimacy because you are so attached to Coke and Pepsi. Guys, I have been the Ruthless Wonder, not a Ruthless Wonder, and until you name me your king, I will continually be the host of The Wrath of Ruthless and Give No Quarter. Look out for Give No Quarter coming this weekend with myself, K.A. Walker, via remote, possibly on Sunday, and of course, the wonderful Bailey with me on Saturday. Don't forget to check out The Wrath of Ruthless every week. We tape live on Saturdays at 1:30 p.m., and it's available on SoundCloud Mondays after 2 p.m. Take care, and I will see you all next time.
Give no quarter. Give no quarter. Give no quarter. Give no quarter.